In November 2020, the Reserve Bank of Australia made a promise. They said interest rates would stay low until at least 2024, not a hint, not a suggestion, a public, on-the-record commitment. And Australians did what any rational person would do when a central bank makes a promise. They believed it. They bought houses, they took out mortgages, they stretched their budgets to the absolute limit because the most powerful financial institution in the country told them it was safe to do so. And then in May 2022, 2 years before the promise expired, the RBA started hiking rates, and they didn't stop. 13 consecutive rate rises, the fastest tightening cycle in Australian history. The cash rate went from 0.1% to 4.35% in 18 months, and the people who bought homes based on that promise, they got absolutely cooked. Let's put real numbers on this. Someone who borrowed $750,000 in early 2022 at a variable rate was paying around $2,900 a month. By late 2023, that same mortgage was costing them closer to $4,800 a month. That's an extra $1,900 every single month. Not a rounding error, not a minor adjustment. Nearly $2,000 that used to go to groceries, childcare, savings, or just existing, now going straight to the bank. And this didn't happen to a small group of unlucky people. It happened to an entire cohort. The generation that was told to stop complaining about housing, stop buying smashed Avo, get serious and buy property, did exactly that, at exactly the wrong moment, based on exactly the guidance they were given. Now here's where it gets genuinely infuriating. The RBA's own review, released in 2023, admitted the forward guidance was a mistake. They acknowledged that telling Australians rates would stay low until 2024 was an error in communication, that it created expectations they couldn't meet, that people made major financial decisions based on that guidance. They called it a lesson learned. The people with the $4,800 mortgages called it something else. And look, inflation was real. The rate hikes were necessary. Nobody's arguing the RBA should have just let inflation run. But there is a difference between doing the right thing and doing it in a way that burns the exact people you misled. Because when you make a public promise and then break it at speed, the damage isn't just financial, it's a trust problem. And trust, once gone from a central bank, takes a very long time to come back. But here's the part that gets glossed over in every polite economic discussion about this period. The rate hikes didn't hurt everyone equally. If you owned your home outright, no mortgage, rates rising meant your savings account finally started paying something. Term deposits went from embarrassing to decent overnight. Asset prices stayed elevated. Life continued. If you were a renter hoping to buy, rising rates briefly made borrowing cheaper in theory, but they also caused landlords to pass on mortgage stress through rent increases. So renters got squeezed from both sides, can't afford to buy, can't afford to rent, just caught in the middle of a policy cycle designed around an economy that isn't theirs. And if you were the person who bought in 2021 or early 2022, you got the worst of everything. You paid peak prices, you borrowed at near zero rates that then exploded, and you watched your paper equity evaporate while your monthly repayment went to a number you didn't budget for because nobody told you to. That is not bad luck. That is the consequence of institutional miscommunication at scale. So what happens now? Rates are coming down, slowly. The RBA has started cutting, and the expectation is more cuts follow through 2025 and into 2026. Mortgage stress will ease gradually. Some of the pressure comes off. The system muddles through. But here's the uncomfortable truth that a rate cut doesn't fix. A generation of Australians made the biggest financial decision of their lives inside a window of false certainty created by the institution responsible for monetary stability. Some of them will be fine, some of them won't. Some of them have already sold. Some are hanging on by a thread waiting for cuts that aren't coming fast enough. And the RBA released a report, learned its lessons, updated its communication framework, and moved on. Because institutions don't feel mortgage stress. People do. The rate cycle will end, the debt will remain. And the generation that was told to get serious and buy property, and did, is going to be paying for this policy era for the next 20 years. That's not doom and gloom. That's just the maths. Drop your take in the comments. Did the RBA handle this right? Or did they break a promise and leave an entire generation holding the bill?